You are listening to Radiant Creators, a collaborative project composed of people whose passion, purpose, and dedication requires forging their own unique path of empowerment and livelihood. A radiant creator isn't making a living, they are living.
And cut.
Welcome to Radiant Creators, Randall, Crypto Love, also known as Crypto Love. We've chatted before, and we're just catching up because it's a new year, and it looks like the electoral process may have completed here in this country. Looks like the left side of the House took the House and Senate and the presidency, so that's going to help investors who are, well, truth seekers, to figure out what they're going to do next. Doesn't matter if we like it, don't like it, it makes no difference. If you're a truth seeker, you just want to make money. So now at least we can move into basically buying a shit ton more Bitcoin because we're going to print the AF out of dollars right now. That shit's not going to be worth a damn thing in a couple weeks. So how you doing, Randall? Crypto Love? What do you think of that?
Good to be back.
Yeah.
Fun to be back. Thanks for having me again. And I think the more stimulus checks, the higher Bitcoin will go. And so I'm pretty excited for that. As for the rest of the stuff, new year, new you. I'm excited to talk about some fun stuff. You always got good things cooking. And
Yeah, well, it looks like we moved into the age of Aquarius officially, depending on how people look at it. You know, these are big cycles and it gets hard to tell. Some say when the first nuclear test was done, that was the beginning of the age of Aquarius. Some say that was when we began to transit in. But right now it does look like we are 51% tilting towards the Aquarius side of things, away from Pisces. And Pisces, I will say, has been a pain in the ass. And we made some nice cathedrals and such, but it's been a lot of, genocide, murders, delusion, both political and spiritual. So I'm happy that that doormat of Pisces is behind us, and now we're moving into the action-packed, lightning bolt shooting out its ass Aquarian age, which is all about crypto love. It is. I know. I actually see that was futuristic, wasn't it? Like, was that on purpose, or is this just kind of a synchronicity?
first thing that came to mind. First thing. Yeah, definitely. So how has your new year been so far?
It's been pretty good. It's been pretty good. And for people who are listening who can't see, Crypto Love's motto, his little meme is basically a 8-bit unicorn shooting an 8-bit
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin out of its butt with a rainbow blast.
Yeah, that was just when I got into Bitcoin. I was like, man, this stuff's like unicorns and rainbows. It just keeps on going up and up and up. And now I understand why it keeps going up and up. But back then it was just magic. This was in 2017. And we're in that time period again, where basically anytime you invest in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, it's always a good time to invest in them. The price just keeps on going up and up. And from a macro sense, it appears like it could be doing that on a long timeline, but looking at Bitcoin cycles, potentially until like September, October of 2021.
Yeah, if we follow previous cycles, which seem to be pretty consistent, it would show that, yeah, we're going to pump until October or so. But then along with that, it actually, we're a little bit behind the curve when you compare it to pumps in the past. So definitely, I don't think we haven't even begun to pump yet. And this is a wow. And wait till those stimulus checks come out. We're going to pump more. And see, that's something I'd ask you. So yeah, my 2021 has been interesting. It's been fun. I would say, I don't know if I had the C19 or the C20. Most people think, oh, I think I probably had that like in January or something like that of 2019. Most people think I was a little bit sicker than usual with the flu or whatever. I thought so, but maybe I hear there's an up and coming 20 out now, which you're not cool if you haven't had it, basically. And so me being futuristic, I was like, give me that shit. So anyway, I have never been in bed for 10 days in my damn life, but I was sick as crap. And there seems to be this weird, and I have asked many, many crazy people that I know. So this is confirmed, okay, that it that look, I posted it to like the Pleiadian channel message boards, and the guides told me, so confirmed. Basically that it had this mental component to it. I was just in despair. And a lot of people that I've known, probably my circle of friends doesn't really count. So do your own research. But um, it seemed to have this mental component of dread to it. It was this sort of like dark night of the soul, stuck in bed, but afterwards, physically glad to be alive. I love to have thriving, vibrant health, and also kind of went through this sort of spiritual reboot. And it seems to have been a common theme for people who were, sick recently. So maybe
Mm.
us futuristic truth seekers are just taking on the 20 and kicking its ass and, resetting.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. There's this book that I'm reading right now that I really wish I would have read years ago, but it's probably one of the best books I've read in a long time, called Learned Optimism. And it basically finds this guy, he's a positive psychologist, Martin Seligman from University of Pennsylvania. He's found a very, very strong connection between learned helplessness and depression. He can actually create both animals and people that have all the clinical signs and would be depressed, would be diagnosed as depressed by just creating the conditions of learned helplessness. And so it's interesting you bring that up because, when you get sick, when you get the flu, you feel really bad. And then on top of that, we have all these external factors occurring in the world, what's going on with politics, what's going on with the shutdowns all over the place. And it feels like you're completely helpless in this world. You can't do anything. And so I'm totally not shocked at all that with this component of COVID-20 or whatever you're calling it, uh, people are feeling depressed. People are feeling bummed because I can see how they could see that, how it just seems like nothing they do can make a difference. But I would go on to argue, we all have agency over our thoughts, over our lives, and even just the little things we can do from day to day. All of those little things compound, and they kind of prove to you that you actually have agency and you're not helpless, and it kind of banishes all those bad feelings along the way.
Wow, books are good. Learned Optimism. I'll have to check that out because I like the idea. Actually, they're in the other room. I was gonna bring them in. I thought a fun thing to talk about is, since so many people have been okay, there's this intense energy out there. Most people are feeling it. I mean, the world's very intense. The country's very intense right now. I'm happy. I'm good. I'm cruising, having a good time. But still, there is that intensity. So I think learning optimism is a good idea. But I was recently, just having a renaissance of reading, which we all should do. But I was reading one, How to Find Your Way Without Map and Compass. And it's on Amazon. And it's got, it's both, you can get a physical copy and an Audible. And it gets into how did our ancestors used to land navigate before there were compasses? And such. And it gets into like, an anthill will tell you which is north and south and this and that, basic star stuff, birds flying, what that means. Also gets into, sorry about that. It gets into this amazing art that I didn't know anybody actually had documented, and they have, is where the Pacific Island people, the natives, used to be able to tell how far land was and which way by the waves. And he actually touches on that and touches on, I didn't know this, but us um, back in the wooden ship days, and even now as a backup, believe it or not, people will have birds on board because if you let them go, if they're near land, off certain birds will go to it. And if there's no land near, they just kind of circle around, poop, and they come back and land in the cage, and they're like, feed
Huh.
me. So all this amazing, like earthbound knowledge.
Yeah. I think that sounds like a great book because it kind of goes back to looking at our life as feedback instead of failure. And I think it's so common nowadays. People are just indoctrinated in the school system where you're either taught that you're a success or a failure. And that's the most retarded system ever. And I'm especially using the word retarded because there's an evil connotation with that word. And this is an evil type of system that they have there because, like so many people want success, but they're afraid to fail. And the two are joined at the hip. Okay. There's a saying that if you want to start succeeding, start failing. And because it's through that failure that you get the feedback that you're able to actually move forward in life and create things and do things and actually get the life you want. Like most people are stuck in life because they're too afraid to actually address the obstacles in their life. They'll just stay there. And I was the same way for many years. And, it still happens from time to time where I'll get stuck because I'm fearful of doing something. But once you turn and face it and address it and start going after it and fail and, you know, eventually you overcome it.
Oh yeah. Well, somebody we had on the show, Robert Young Pelton, an extreme adventurist. I mean, this guy, he's always gone to the world's most dangerous places, and he's kind of been a documenter of them. So definitely admire his courage. And one of the things he says is that we're losing. How do I put it? He says like we're allowing our fear of risk to keep us from greatness. You know, like we fear risk right now, and
Mhm.
well, that's the people who were landed on the East Coast here in this country and went west just because they were like, I hate all these assholes, I'm going west. I mean, what if they were afraid of risk? A lot didn't make it, you know? And he also said, if you're afraid of failure, you already have, really. He put it more elegantly than that, but or eloquently than that, I should say. But yeah, it's like, if you're afraid of failure, man, you've already lost. How are you really going to start a great adventure if you're afraid? I
Mhm.
mean, it may exist, but it has to be kept, that monster needs to be kept in its cage.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it like,
Hmm.
everybody's afraid, and people say that I think these are some psychologists or Eastern thinkers or whatever. They say that the main fear is the fear of death. So I kind of look at it like we're all already dead. Like that's guaranteed. At the end of however many years we get, we're all already dead. But you kind of have to take a look at life and be like, do you actually want to live? Because right now the bar to entry for life is so easy. Like literally survival is guaranteed. There's nothing you have to do to survive. It's guaranteed. You don't even have to try hard to get food. It's guaranteed. But in order to actually live your life, that's the difficult thing because we're inundated with comforts, and really they prey on our addictions. Like these companies know how to create people who are addicted to Netflix, to Facebook, to Instagram, whatever it is, to create people who are addicted to this and to prey on our addictions so we feel a modicum of comfort. We feel just safe enough, but it's just safe enough to basically keep us trapped in our box, to not push outside of it, to not actually go after the life that we want. And if we do that, then we basically waste our entire life. Whereas instead, like, people say there's three things guaranteed in this world: death, taxes, and 21 million Bitcoin. So, so yeah, if we're going to die anyways, might as well use your life trying to live it.
Absolutely. There's that great Iron Maiden song, if you're gonna die, die with your boots on. So whenever I feel a little wimpy, I just imagine, I just listen to it, put on my superhero outfit, run around the house, usually when I'm by myself. And, you know, yeah. Oh, and Robert Young Pelton, these are three lines that he mentioned in an interview. I'll just mention them since I want to get them straight. As he said, we are losing the love of, actually, this is how he put it. We are losing the love of risk. We are letting fear prevent us from being great. Then also, never confuse what you are afraid of with what can kill you. and then, and then also, if you fear failure, you've already lost. So just great lines about, getting after it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's actually really good. The same book I was mentioning earlier, Learn Optimism, he was talking about phobias. And that goes right along with what you were saying there with the second quote. Don't let what you're afraid of be confused with what can kill you. Because some people have phobias. And it may even be like the phobia of losing, the phobia of failing, the phobia of being embarrassed, of looking stupid. And people have these, and they're so unwilling to address that because in their mind, there's no dissociation between that and dying. But they've shown with phobias that you can actually use positive reinforcement to actually train people over their phobias.
That's really something. So the possibility of failure being a phobia. And that makes sense. I like it. And then breaking free of that, because something I really love is the Wim Hof Method. You may have,
Hmm.
done it. And to me, I love it because you hyperventilate, basically is what you do. You're breathing and you're holding your breath, and then you find that, and if you just do tests, it proves it to you. You can prove it to yourself. Do how many push-ups you can do, and then recover, take a little break, and then do the Wim Hof breathing. Just like 30 breaths in and out. Hold your breath in, and see how many push-ups you can do, and you'll do like 5 or 6 times the push-ups, because you realize that we're so lazy, we don't breathe. We sit here like slumped forward, and we suffocate ourselves leaning on our lungs. Like, rather than be like, I'm going to breathe, we use our lungs, we just lean on them and go, oh, just really shallow. And then he also gets into, and it sounds horrible, it's something I don't like. I don't like the cold or the heat. I'm just kind of a candy ass. But like, one of his things is jumping in the cold water, which it puts you back in charge, because your body, it goes like, you have this big constriction, but you stay in there for a minute, and you start to, like, through this intense breath and this intense, cold therapy, you start to actually break up your domestication and your phobias. Because yeah, you're right. It's something that Scott Adams talked about a lot. The creator of Dilbert, he was like, one of the problems we have with mediocrity in the world is that, well, nothing can kill us. So, so
Yeah.
I mean, you get rid of those saber-toothed lions, and it just gets pretty mediocre after a while.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, the cold showers are great. I was when I was in Thailand, there was this guy, I think he was probably from one of the Nordic countries, like Sweden or something like that. But big jack dude. Uh we were talking, and we were in like there was this wood sauna, and then he was like, yeah, I go jump in the pool after this. And we just went back and forth from like going in the sauna and jumping in the pool. And he's like, yeah, this is what we do back home, and nobody ever gets sick. We just go from hot to cold to hot to cold. So that's basically the same thing I've been doing since then, where I just, like, when I go take a shower, I start off with a hot shower, wash myself, and then afterwards, cold shower for like up to 5-10 minutes, and haven't been sick since. Yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I found out in, like, studying the Wim Hof material is, when Europeans first came to America and they had their wool on, they were frozen, it's snowing. The native Indians that were here, they just, like, walk up, like, in like a leather loincloth and be like, "Come on now, it isn't that cold."
Yeah,
And
well, evolutionarily, we lived for tens of thousands of years without clothing, without heat, without all these amenities. It's just like we've theoretically weakened ourselves by making ourselves more used to comfort. We're just weaker beings because we can't endure those hard things.
yeah, and we walk around on rubber. We don't walk around on the earth. So that's a huge one for me. And I think it's made a big difference, is actually wearing leather-soled shoes, or really, to the greatest extent I can, just not wearing shoes at all, and that's a huge thing. We don't connect to the earth anymore. Even our homes, the carpet's not conductive. So here, there's tile floors and a cement bottom. And, so kind of, I probably live like 90% of my life, if not more, connected to the natural circuit of the earth. And that's important. So I think it's so strange. Yeah, we don't breathe, we don't go to
Mhm.
any extremes, we're hot, we're cold, and then we don't even touch our planet. And of course, I guess, don't get us started on the shit that Americans eat. I mean,
Yeah.
pretty much 99% carcinogenic garbage.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I went so far as to get an Earth Pulse PEMF magnetic device for underneath my bed. So it basically emits the same magnetic field that the Earth does while you're sleeping. And dude, this thing is absolutely crazy. I'll be honest. It has a whole bunch of settings. So like there's a sleep setting that like literally will like suck you down and sleep real fast. And it actually, like, before I here's the thing. I never thought you could feel magnetic fields until I used this thing. Like, I knew that birds use magnetic fields to go, but like after using this, you can feel it because it actually has something. When it's time to wake up, you can literally feel the magnetic fields going underneath you, like do, 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 and it'll wake you up without an alarm. And then they have different settings on it. There's like an alert setting, like for alertness. And man, you put that on and just do like a half an hour like yoga nidra, and man, you wake up jacked like you just had 5 cups of coffee. It's pretty crazy.
Oh my gosh. So that's a PEMF pad.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. This has just 2 little magnets, but they also have pads and different stuff like that. Yeah.
oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I have a pad that's for healing that uses that, but it's a little bit more basic. But no, I'll have to get a link to that from you. We'll put it in the
Mhm.
show notes because that is, I like that because I mean, to me, well, our Schumann resonance, it stays at 7 point whatever. It's pretty consistent, but um, I'm not sure if you follow the Schumann resonance, but if you, there's a, I guess I could share the screen and find it, but you can look at, let me see if it's right there. I'll do it. If not, I won't waste our time. But there is you should see what the Schumann resonance is doing these days. Okay, here it is right here. So I'm going to grab this while we're talking. Okay, so the Schumann resonance is like the frequency that naturally is created. It's like a harmonic frequency between our ionosphere and then the planet. And so it's about 7 point something hertz. And so with that, oh, I have it right here. So let me actually see if I can successfully do this. Let's see, I want to, can I do that? Can I do it? Let me share a window. Yeah, screw it. Just, here we go. Share, just work. There we go. Okay, so I want to share now. Here we go. So I'll
All
pull this
right.
up for a sec. Now, this is something for you people who are, snazzy enough to watch the video. Watch these two dapper characters yammer on about stuff. So this is the Schumann resonance, and it's measuring a bunch of different things. And you can study this, and you can get into what exactly all these mean, because you've got your amplitudes, you have your frequency quality, you have a bunch of different stuff, and it can take a while to quite grasp what all these different things mean. But in general, it's just like a chart. When it spikes, that's up. You know what I mean? And so you can see there was a spike recently. So these are 3-hour increments. This was yesterday. It was just a shitstorm. It should be blue and quiet. And then
Hmm.
today, earlier, we had a big shitstorm. And so this is happening more and more on our planet where the amplitude, the frequency, a bunch of these different aspects of the Schumann resonance are blasting off. And it's something that you feel. And if you start following this, you might notice sometimes your ears are ringing or you feel irritable or something like that. And you go and look at the Schumann resonance chart and you find out, yep, it's off the charts. And I noticed that what it's doing, a lot of things can affect it. It should all be blue, but recently it's been kind of active. When it turns white like this, that's a big deal. It's a big, big spike in energy. It seems to react to the collective uh, emotion of the planet. When the planet is upset, when people on the planet are upset, it just turns white. And so it's like literally our emotional state affects this planet's resonance between the ionosphere and the Earth. So anyway, I thought I would mention that.
Yeah, it makes sense that it definitely reflects it because, you know, believe in science or not, we're all kind of created out of the same stardust.
Yeah, we absolutely are. Well, I guess here's something I'll ask you. Let's have fun. Here's one. Now, your videos are, they've always been good, but like they're better than ever. You're putting out great stuff. I would say that, there's this weird trend now in crypto related videos where it's like all exclamation points and you must read this now or ever biggest bullshit to ever fart in the universe. So I love your titles. You are really good at creating titles, but it's part of the show. It's part of how you do it. It's part of how you get views. I know that. But here's one: spam. All these people in the comments with all of their nonsense. I think that's an indicator. I know it's frustrating, and I don't ever want to see anybody fall for it and get ripped off. But I mean, if crypto wasn't going places, and why do we have all? I mean, the comment sections are just scam centric. How do you even try to keep up with that anymore?
Nope. No. I have specific chat groups that I will respond to, but I don't even bother with the comments on YouTube because it's just, I mean, it's like troll central. And so, but you know what? I look at it as if you're getting trolled, you're making somewhere, because the people in the channels that aren't getting trolled, that don't have the spam, they're just not that drawing that much of an audience. So it's an indicator that you're doing something, but I think it's more beneficial for the viewers and also for myself just to have a separate and in my case, it's a paid group for one-on-one interaction, because then people have to actually bring something to the table. Like YouTube's free. Everything I put on YouTube will always be for free, just because I want to bring the most good to the most amount of people that I can. Uh, but the comment section, there's no benefit for me to actually spend time on there, because it's just frustrating for me. And maybe they get value from it, but I don't think people really care that much, because they don't have to invest that much to comment on the videos. I do have separate groups that are paid groups where people can join that, and have a one-on-one interaction, and that's great for both of us, because they've put some skin in the game in order to be in there, and so I get to give them a much higher value for what they've given than what I would pay attention to something in the comments.
That makes sense. And what does that look like? So how do people find that? Is that on
So it's
your
on Patreon,
Patreon?
patreon.com/crypto love. Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
you join Patreon, you get not only like about 30 some exclusive videos to Patreon, but also you get to be part of our super top secret Discord server. So yeah, you get to have fun with that.
Oh, I like it. That's perfect. Yeah, I dig it. I think that makes sense because um, it is true. What people don't pay for is it's a big difference. I mean, even no, I get it. So it does make sense, and I understand ignoring those because it does seem that definitely crypto. Of course, it's on the way up. This as we go into 2021. Of course, it is. But like I've never seen more of scammers in comments. So I know some people see it as negative, and I on the videos that I'm doing, I try to clean them up. There's only so much you can do.
Mhm.
Especially the more videos you have, eventually it's just overwhelming. But I kind of see it as a positive thing because people wouldn't be scamming unless there was something in it. So I'm like, I have
Right.
never like. So I think there is the greed and fear index. There actually could be the scammer index. The scammer
Hmm.
index is
Yeah.
78 today.
You
It's
know,
never been higher.
it's getting hot when there's a lot of spam posts.
Oh yeah, gosh.
Yeah.
And they're always like, could you guys even like you are not a native English speaker. Whoever's doing this, dear, could you very much my funds best ever help me 3 BTC get back 10 friend email
Right.
WeChat. It's like, are you
Yeah.
serious? Like,
Well, it's that's one of the difficulties with cryptocurrency, is when you give people control over their money, it's buyer beware. People need to beware. Unfortunately, people aren't aware, and I think it part of it goes to how there's so many safety nets, so many securities in the world, that people aren't used to it. Like for instance, most investments you can't participate in the US unless you're an accredited investor. And then all of a sudden you can participate in them because you have a lot of money, or you have a certain amount of income. And generally, to get to that area, you've had to make investments or do things where buyer beware. But most people are just like, oof, if I give one, you know, I want to make some money. If I give this person one ETH, they're going to return 10 ETH to me. All right, that's awesome. Because by nature, a lot of people are gamblers, and gambling is a tax on people who can't do math. So they just end up, paying tax on it time and time again. But yeah, eventually you learn. Well, maybe it's what we were talking about earlier. Where is it, failure or feedback? Are you going to choose to learn from your life lessons, or are you just going to keep repeating them over and over and over again?
yeah, and you have to keep, trying. You have to keep striving. I think spiritual growth has a certain aspect of masochism to it. like like if you're not willing to jump in that cold shower, then
Mhm.
forget it. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, it certainly is masochistic to keep on trying to go forward, because like, what would be easier than just to be content with where you are and be like, okay, this is great. Whatever it is, this is great. And maybe that works for some people. Like maybe you can remain in a blissed out state all the time. But I think a lot of life, it's either growth or death. Nothing ever really stays the same. So you're either getting better or getting worse. And you kind of have to choose. And getting better is painful, and it requires work, and it's hard, and it's a constant, never ending effort. And the other option is just getting worse, dying. So, pick or choose.
And the key is to do something every day, to have some kind of practice or practices. I think we have some weird programming in us that makes us think. So you haven't been to the gym for a while and you're out of shape and you're unhappy. And on every level, life is failing, going down this dark, dark, dark tube, And so, and you're spiraling. And so you think, okay, I'm going to go to the gym. And you go to the gym and you're like, if I don't get in shape this time, I'm going to work out so hard that I'm going to get in shape today. I'm like, wait a second. You've been working on being a fat ass for 20 years, right?
You got to pace yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's just start with
Well,
do something.
all right. That is, I mean, that's a great point right there. Is that our our interpretation of time is lacking. There's a quote. So, like, one of the things that I do for fun right now is I'm learning the Golang programming language, and this guy I'm learning it from, he studied for 7 years. He meditated an hour a day, and that's like a huge accomplishment. But one of his meditation teachers would always say, persistently, patiently, you are bound to succeed. Persistently, patiently, you are bound to succeed. And I think we all forget this because persistently, patiently, we are bound to succeed. We always overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 10 years. And really, a lot of that comes down to persistence. And I actually had this idea the other day. I haven't shared this with anyone, but I think you're the perfect person to share it with.
Exclusive, Crypto Love exclusive.
Exclusive. Okay, so like we look at hard things in the world, like rocks and metals and different things like this, and we're like, they're hard, like they can destroy things. But then we look at water as being this soft, receptive thing. But then we look at the Grand Canyon and see what the water can do to these really, really hard things, these rocks, these minerals. And actually water can mold reality to whatever it wants to be. And then you have to realize that we are 70 plus percent water. And by taking the power from that water, by being persistent and patient, we can really create whatever we want out of reality.
Yeah, and that gets into Neville. I recently been listening to Neville again, and Neville, I forget his last name, but he's in the early like up to about I think he died around 1970 something, but he was this amazing character who really talked about persistent beliefs create reality, and to think from the end. And he has it comes down to sort of like the Abraham or the Bashar, if you're into channeled stuff. um it gets into really the whole creative intent that is I think humans have always been aware of, but we're becoming more aware of. And this guy, he's a very like proper gentleman, very eccentric looking of his time. And you can hear his lectures, they're on YouTube, of him actually talking. And the recordings weren't that great, but people put a lot of effort into cleaning a lot of them up, and so it sounds rather good. And there's this guy like straight out of the 50s or the 30s, just talking about the deepest existential stuff. He's just like, oh, eh, eh, that imagination. He says like, you are God, because, and where you have that God realization is your imagination. And then what you imagine as existing now with persistence then becomes reality. And that's all you're doing all the time anyway. If you would just learn to do that deliberately, then you would create basically miraculously what you want in life. And that's our issue, is that you need have no fear of failure, really, because whatever might come your way, even if it appears to be failure, is, well, basically it's helping you along. So that there's this amazing mindset that I think, oh, there you go. I think we will see, like, along with what you're saying, I think that's the whole new, like, 51 degrees into Aquarius. That's the new kind of age that we're moving into. There's definitely, here's what I would move into. I got to ask you is that I think that, and something we talked about before, and real quickly, the Grand Canyon, some say that was a plasma event, and like great big mega plasma lightning actually is what carved that. Would have sucked to have been anywhere near that, wouldn't it? So anyway, but look at it now. Look at like an arc that a spark makes, and look at the Grand Canyon. You're going to be like, whoa, that was a bad day on earth, let me tell you. So anyway, definitely messed up everybody's hair that day. So I think that crypto to me really is, as I see it, a peaceful revolution. And one of the things I love about really at this point, a good deal of my, income, my living is crypto, trading and some other aspects of it. And I love being able to wake up in the morning and feel good, to be excited, to be like, oh my gosh, I never get up too early. Like as soon as I open my eyes and that freaking like that sleep thing is over, it can be like 3 a.m. I'm like, yeah, and I have vigor and I'm like, what's going on? And I wake up just like ready. I don't want to sleep. I'm like, just enough sleep to get me by so I can get back in it. And I think most people cannot say that about what they do for a living, that it just invigorates them and they joyously go to it every day. They get after it. Well, with that said, I think it's a peaceful revolution. And I think that humanity, because so Randall, not everyone knows it, but he also has a bit of a spiritual side. He's not just the dapper billionaire, He actually, he definitely has the, which can be spiritual also. But um, he, when he's not having martinis with Elon Musk, sometimes he hangs out with the normies like us. And so here's the thing: how do you think the peaceful revolution is going with crypto? And also, do you see really a parallel society and a parallel economy truly, rather than fighting the current one, just basically people are stepping into it?
Yeah. So I definitely think it is a revolution. And just in the same way that kind of the internet opened up the world to knowledge, to entertainment, I mean, I'm not a fan of the word disrupt because everybody's talking about disrupting everything. But I mean, it's true. The internet just disrupted every business. Like Blockbuster. I mean, Blockbuster Video, they were the number one. And then Netflix came along and just completely disrupted anything. Like nobody saw it coming and it just totally dominated. And the same way that the internet did that for information, it's likely that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are going to do that for money, because this is probably in at least the foreseeable history, this is one of the greatest experiments in money that's ever been done. And not only in money, but also in power. Because for much of the foreseeable history, money has always been associated with power. Any type of money had some king's face printed on it. I mean, you even look at our dollar bills, they got Lincoln and Washington and Franklin and all these quote unquote kings printed on them. They're fiat money. But historically, all fiat money goes to zero. Now, Bitcoin, I mean, who even knows if Satoshi, whether that be a he, she, or a group or whatever it was, or some intelligent being from the future, or the creator of whatever virtual reality we're living inside of, who even knows if this person knew what was going to happen with Bitcoin when they created it? And I have a feeling they don't know, because there's Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are a platform. Just as the internet is a platform, Bitcoin is a platform, and it allows for the creation of people. So whatever people want to create, this is now a platform that we say, hey, go and create. And money is one of these things that can be created. And you see this happening all the time in cryptocurrency, where people just create like Sushi Swap, not a great example, but this is one where, he created a platform, and within a week he cashed out millions of dollars. And the platform's even bigger now. And that's something where you won't need governments to create monies anymore. It's going to take that power away from governments. The power will actually go towards the network effect. So whatever is the most popular, like, that will ultimately be the money that's used. And I think there's going to be a struggle, probably for 10 years, maybe 20 years, of governments wanting to try and retain that power. They're going to tax it. They're going to try and say, you have to give this back to us. I mean, in the early 1900s, the government, before they put the dollar on the gold standard, they made it illegal to own any gold. You had to give all your gold back to the government. And I have a feeling they may end up trying to do that with cryptocurrencies. The problem is governments are fat, slow bureaucracies, whereas people involved in crypto are some of the leanest, meanest, smartest people in the world. And they will always outmaneuver the governments. So I'm not too worried of that happening in the long run. I think in the short run, though, it it's actually going to be somewhat of a reunifying of the world, because we've been separated a bit from COVID, and all the countries are closing down to each other. There's talks about a new Bretton Woods, so having a new reserve currency. It could be a cryptocurrency. All these central banks are talking about having their central bank digital currencies. Um, and I think that we'll have a more global economy with cryptocurrencies, but it's something that is going to take a while. I think Bitcoin, though, is one of the greatest experiments ever, because from some in 11 years, something that had no value to something being worth $40,000 is incredible, like absolutely mind-bogglingly incredible. And we're not even close to being finished yet. Every 4 years so far, it's gone up a whole order of magnitude. And that means that, going to be close to 100,000 this time, going to be close to a million in 2025, close to 10 million in 2029, close to 100 million in 2034. So, like, this is what we were talking about earlier with people not understanding the compound effect, and the, what you not having a good idea of time, and also the exponential function. It's just, it's going to do some crazy things. So we'll have to kind of see.
No, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. And so I think that, yeah, there's a parallel society and economy kind of being created. And I think it's also, you call it a intellectual, spiritual one too. It's not just, monetary. It seems that there's something big happening, and you kind of got the fear train on earth, and you kind of got the love train on earth. And some people are kind of straddling each one, but it's easier just to get on one, And so once you get on that love train, that evolutionary train, that, well, Aquarian age train, well, cryptocurrency makes sense. And then also, I see something that is, I do see a more positive parallel society and economy being created, and it's not competing against the old one, because you really can't break free playing the old one's rules, but you can just make a new one and start doing it. That's what I love about Bitcoin. It's, and also DeFi, of course, is you go, well, basically we'll just make new financial services, we'll make a new monetary system that ultimately is global and borderless. It doesn't even play by those rules. And of course, that's kind of the love train. Then you have the fear train, the current one, that is our economic system on the planet. And if you play by its rules, the old, I call it like a 3D finance versus like 5D finance, And so they really just basically are in different dimensions. And I think if we just keep our focus on the Bitcoin side of things, that love train, then basically the old one is going to just fall away or change the way it exists, because you really can't fight it, because it's got like aircraft carriers, it's got zealots, it has violence down ultimately. And I'd ask you your take on this. Do you think that the old 3D economy, one of the things that it has going for it, I think really its true foundation of value, like where fiat currency gets its value, it's violence.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oh,
violence.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. But I think it was Martin Luther King who said you can't fight hate with hate. You can only fight it with love. And I mean, simple as that. If When you're fighting someone, you need to be fighting someone who's resisting you. If you don't resist it, then what are they going to fight? It's like a keto. It's using their own momentum against them. And here's the thing. So, like I mentioned that Bitcoin's a platform, like the internet was a platform. Well, look at what happens now when people act out of order. Like back in the day, there were these societies where you could basically be a dictatorship and get away with doing whatever you wanted. But nowadays, with the internet, where you can literally publish something to the entire world in seconds, you just can't get away with the stuff you could get away with once upon a time. And that's something that governments have to be fearful of, is using their power in a wrong manner. Because guess what? That power will be taken away. Like the US is one of the strongest countries that's ever been alive. But you know what? Before the US, that was England. They were the strongest. And before them, it was probably Spain or someone else. So like it's not a be all end all. It's like it's kind of like a stewardship. Like they have the favor to be able to be the strongest nation for this time that they're the strongest nation. And hopefully during that time they'll do the most good that they can. But eventually that's going to pass to someone else. And so now I think that someone else is not going to be so much a country as it's going to be a collection of people.
It's going to literally be a parallel society and a parallel economy, I think, that, yeah, and that's the way to go because, the 3D economy, the 3D world, the 3D government, it has that same vision, but it calls that technocracy and globalism, you know, which that just sucks ass even worse. That's like, well, you thought borders were awful. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
So that's not so cute at all. But yeah, I love that. You can't fight hate with hate. You got to fight it with love. Ultimately, and that's the idea is that when there's just this better world, this better economy. And to me, I'm a crazy person. So I see it as this big, there's a lot of pieces to it. So it's this intellectual, physical, spiritual, monetary, new society, which is being created, new humanity. Almost might call it like new earth. There's like 3D earth versus new earth. And so really you just start living on new earth in your mind and in your finances. And then, well, this is a huge difference for governments. I remember Ram Dass said back in the 70s, he said, America's going to go through a really difficult time where rather than being the bully, it's just another kid on the block. And that's
Mhm.
going to be a really hard time for America. And so I think all countries right now, the governments, which have been kind of all powerful within their borders, especially with crypto, Bitcoin, DeFi, with these systems that are in place now, and a parallel economy and society being created, which is just stepping away from that 3D old world. Yeah, who do they fight? See, governments now I think are finding that, well, let's see, we can't really stop it because we don't own it because it's not within our borders. So we can be a pain in the ass, but we don't actually have the power that we used to. Because, yeah, sure, I think a government in a particular country could get totally psycho and try to like say, if you own Bitcoin, it's the death sentence. But it doesn't care. People would still own it.
Mhm.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
people
Yeah,
would.
or they would just go to a privacy coin and they talk about,
Yes.
while they're figuring out the privacy coins, they're figuring out Monero, and they'll say, well, we'll create another one that they can't figure out. Like there's always there's always advances in technology, and that's not going to stop. And I think the advances happen more quickly than the regulation can happen just because of the way the system's created. And so because of that, it'll always be outpaced. Always.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing when you look at like our Senate, especially, and the House is not much better, but whenever there's hearings in the Senate, you watch these old farts on oxygen tanks who are asking the most stupid ass questions like, "So what is a Bitcoin?" I mean, these reptilian old monsters run the country, and you're like, you know, it's frightening, but it's also inspiring because y'all are so dumb that you cannot keep up with the Aquarian age and crypto and DeFi and a parallel society. It's like, I think if you said, well, basically, somebody, if they had hearings, you watch, they'll have hearings in the Senate before too long on the issue, the trouble of the parallel society and economy, which is basically non-state based but global, you know, and everyone's just basically stepping out of their 3D reality that they've created, and these people don't care anymore. And by living in that other world and being happier and better and being happy, healthy, and wealthy, and no longer fat, dumb, and happy and a debt slave, like they're still living where they used to live, and they kind of like they look the same, but now they're kind of free and they don't buy our bullshit anymore. So like, what should we do? I don't know. Maybe we could like, I don't know. Can we bomb our way out of this? Could we demonize somebody? I don't know. I think
Yeah.
we're going to see these ancient ass clowns just start to like wander around with dementia and just finally just click over and die because isn't that so funny? Like we really don't need that centralized control anymore, and that's a huge difference too. I think with the new earth, new age, really, and crypto, the idea of it, and DeFi, is that centralized systems suck, and you actually truly can have a decentralized system. And
Hmm.
that is a new one. I think that is something for people to really, that's a very new agey aspect, to a very Aquarian aspect to grasp, that going from a centralized control structures like banks and governments to decentralized. I mean, that's wow. It's almost like it's good not to live forever because your brain can only grasp so much. But there very well may be in the future a borderless, decentralized world that is not the technocracy, that is not the globalist vision, that is not like Agenda 21 and 30. It's actually something way more beautiful. It's like we are living in such a time of parallel reality splitting.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, just look at it. Like, if you, I mean, I've had this experience going between different states and different countries, and there's nothing on the earth other than the signs we put up there that says that, like, this is one thing and that's another. Like, I remember I visited a friend in the country of Georgia, and this is in Eastern Europe, and we drove up to the Kazbegi Mountains up there, and literally right through that ravine is Russia. And it's just like, but it's just these beautiful mountains. There's literally like nothing that you can see. There's nothing visibly on earth. There's nothing real on earth that is a separation of these things. It's all kind of made up here.
It's true. It's true. Well, something I see that's happening also is people are becoming aware of the systems that do exist, and I think that until crypto, now I know some people have been a bit more futuristic, but I think especially with crypto, the since what 2010, Bitcoin kind of began. By the year, people have become more and more aware, who never were before, of what is the SEC. You know, what is taxes? What is this? What is that? And I think this is something that I see changing because I'm not even sure his real name. I just call him Ass Munchin, whatever his name is, Ass Munchin, whatever. So Ass Munch recently was saying, and he constantly says, and they wanted to push more regulation, that I think this is a big one. People are being offended. And I love seeing this because it's something that I think is new to the consciousness that, so, okay, Ass Munchin. So you're telling everyone on earth that if we have a transaction that you cannot see, it is terrorism. Like, I don't appreciate that view,
Mhm.
and I think
Yeah.
humanity is changing because of
Well,
that.
that's because it's limiting their control. Like, governments have had control through the printing of fiat money and through the monitoring of fiat money. And actually, there's speculation that governments nowadays are trying to do away with central banks are trying to do away with regular banks by having negative interest rates so that they can have a direct connection with each individual and uh, offer central bank digital currencies so they can track literally every dollar you spend and then reward you, incentivize you, and penalize you based on a social score like what they're doing in China, which is insane.
Yeah, and that's ultimately the technocracy, as that's what kind of the label it's been given. And so there's two different future visions, and one is the 3D Earth, right? The 3D world of central banks and governments, which is technocracy, which is what they seem to all kind of want ultimately. And then you've got the parallel society and economy, which is what, well, at least the currency in that is crypto.
Mhm.
And so it's so much better to be able to pour your passions. I think, how do you fight the old world? And this is one that I know, especially as a guy, because we're supposed to be the tough ones, the masculine ones, and I am, of course, but still, um, it's just that, how do you fight the old world? How do you fight what's going on? People have a tendency to desire to fight. And I think the issue is you can't. And that's a huge one, especially for guys to get with. It's that no, you can't fight it. You just live in the new world.
Mhm.
You
Exactly.
you ignore it and it becomes
Exactly.
irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah. You just put your focus on what you want. Don't even worry about the rest of the stuff because you could spend your, like, here's the thing. You have the choice. You have agency over your life. You have the choice upon how you spend your time, your energy, your life. And you can spend that fighting something, but that's not really going to get you anywhere. You might as well just spend it creating what you want. And it's so much more proactive, but it's a choice. So people have the right to choose however they want to do and whatever they want to do. And I'm glad they have that choice and I'm happy for them. But I'm going to take my time and energy and use it to creating the life that I want.
Absolutely, it's so much more fun. Like I get a hard time from some of my liberty-minded friends about like masks. Here, I guess here in the U.S., I guess everywhere in the world, you're supposed to wear one now. And I have my little mask. I wear it around my neck. I don't have it on ever. But when I go in the store, I'm like, poof. Then I get my pineapple and my organic dates, and I get whatever. It's kind of a carb week. So I hop out and I take it off, and I don't care if someone gives me a hard time in the parking lot. I don't have to wear it legally there. You know, I just can't get into that fight. I don't like it, but I can't get into it. It's just diminishing. Then I have people I know who are like, "No, man, I'm not wearing it." And like at the end of the day, I'm feeling good. Did my errands, got it all done. They look like they've had their ass dragged across the desert, and I'm like, I don't know what point you're making. I'm telling you, I just don't think you're winning. I told them, blah. I don't know. It's a weird world. That is a huge thing, how we approach life. I mean, I approach it. I want to be on a rocket ship to Pluto to my own development, my own enlightenment. I don't want to, get in a fist fight in every Walmart. Not that I go there, but because I'm not wearing a mask. It just seems like, I don't know, getting tackled by security guards and SJWs does not
Yeah.
sound like a fun way to get enlightened.
Yeah. I would just, you don't find people who are living a successful life who are really fighting the whole mask thing. You just don't.
I like that. It's true. Yeah, I
There's
dig it.
people who are fighting everything else in their life, and literally everything's a fight, and they're all complaining because they're doing this and they're doing that, and it's their faults that this and it's their faults that that, and I'm not going to do this, and the man and the other and the whatever. And it's just like, yeah, whatever. So is life.
Yeah. At least you're not running from saber-toothed tigers anymore. So just have a good time. Hop in a cold shower. Get over it. Be
Hmm.
successful. Be too successful to have time for aggravation. Well, I've had you for a little while. I'm not sure how much time you got, but I wanted to ask about. Here's one. Since crypto is doing very well right now, and obviously, a lot of people are saying, "Oh man, I didn't get in. I feel so sad. I'm
Hmm.
depressed, etc., etc." And I tell them all the same thing. I kind of say, "Look, well, for one thing, you're a dumbass. I told you." No, I don't say that. I just think it. I don't. That's my inside voice. But no, my outside voice. I tell them, "Well, look, 30K. We're gonna see 30K pretty soon. The same as we say, same as we see 30K." you know and just like I don't think anyone's really thinking Bitcoin's going to be 3K ever again. Not very long from now, you're going to realize Bitcoin will never be 30K ever again either. And then 60K will be the new 30K. And so it's not too late to get in. This is a thing I see with people, like they're waiting for that perfect moment, and there isn't. It's like I always say, like, are you a trader? Are you a white knuckle trader? Do you know what you're doing in the charts and all? If you don't, then and even if you do, even if you're a great trader, dollar cost average, get started. Like if you dollar cost it like $100 a week for the last 3 years, you're doing phenomenal right now. I can tell you how I know that, but I'm just saying you're doing really well. So
Yeah.
how are you, like what are your words for people who are like, oh man, I didn't
Yeah.
get in. What should I do?
Well, they say the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. Second best time is now. Same thing with Bitcoin. Like there's never going to be a good time to buy Bitcoin. It will never happen where the price will drop and somebody will tell you buy Bitcoin now because it's going to go up 100 times in the future. What's going to happen is the price will drop and everybody will be like, "Oh my god, it's going to zero." That's what'll happen. That's the reality of what'll happen. So there'll never be a good time for you to buy, a good time for you to get in. But it basically parallels everything else in your life. Like there's never a good time to do anything. The green lights are not all ever green in a row. You just have to start moving and then from there you can adjust and you start and you go further. So basically, not financial advice. I just make YouTube videos about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. I'm not a financial advisor, so I don't know what to do. You need to figure out what's right for you. But I can tell you what's been right for me is dollar cost averaging since the day I found out about Bitcoin. That's what I've been doing. And basically, like I love to reference this one book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. There's literally one difference between rich people and poor people. It's the simplest thing ever. And like, you know that things are true when they're simple. It's Occam's razor. But the simplest thing ever, there's one difference between rich people and poor people. And that difference is rich people invest in assets. Poor people invest in liabilities. Assets are things that put money in your pocket. Liabilities are things that take your money out of your pocket. So rich people will buy investment properties. They'll buy stocks. They'll buy bonds. They'll buy Bitcoin. They'll buy cryptocurrencies. Poor people will buy fancy cars, really nice clothes, and putting it all on credit cards as well. So like, if you just make that one shift, that will not, it won't do it today. It won't do it tomorrow. It won't do it next week. It won't do it next month. But eventually, in 6 months, in a year, in 5 years, it will make all the difference in the world just making that one shift. So for people who aren't in Bitcoin yet, yes, as with everything, the higher the price goes, the riskier it gets. But looking at it from a macro sense point of view, Bitcoin, no matter what the scenario is, Bitcoin pretty much wins. So if governments take back power, they just will continue printing more money because their economic point of view is we just keep printing more money. And if that happens, value of Bitcoin goes up. If governments lose, Bitcoin still wins because guess what? There's no more governments. There's no more fiat currencies. We now have digital currencies. We now have Bitcoin. And there's only a few somewhat parallel examples to what Bitcoin is. So like Tickle Me Elmo. That was a toy that people went bananas for because there was a limited supply. PlayStation 5s this Christmas, another great example because it's limited supply. There's only so many of them. Bitcoin, there's only so many of, and large corporations right now are basically buying it up at an insane clip. And because of that, supply and demand, simple economics, the price goes up. But the good news about Bitcoin is that I still think that Bitcoin is in the early Facebook cycle. Because if you look at the demographic of the people who are balls deep in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, it's pretty much like 18 to 25-year-old males. There are some older people, but pretty much that's it. And in the beginning, that was the demographic of Facebook, was college kids. All right. Before your parents were on Facebook, before investors were in Facebook and they had their IPO, before your grandmother was on Facebook, that's the period. So if you wanted to invest in Facebook pre-IPO, that would be like investing in Bitcoin today. And it may all go to zero, but there's a lot of other things saying, hey, it's probably going to go pretty high.
Yeah, and assets and liabilities, that is a big thing that does separate the rich from the poor, because of the rich and the middle class. It's something that I live near the huge mall here in Scottsdale called Fashion Square. It's very famous, this big thing. And sometimes in the summer when it's super hot here, it's fun just to go walk through because it's like super air conditioned, although it smells like very toxic. But so if you walk through just to get a break because it's hot, um, one thing you see, it's so odd, is that you'll see these lines out the door now with the COVID stuff. They only let so many people in, but most of the mall is dying for the most part, which is a sad thing to see. But I mean, it's just this huge, expensive building, and it's just boarding up basically. Of course, it didn't help that it got looted a few months ago. That was glorious, bunch of middle-class white kids looting a mall because they've been repressed, whatever. So basically, like, you see these huge lines out in front of Gucci and Louis Vuitton. And the people, I'm like, you can just look and they are buying it on credit. And you see this long line of people who do not look like they have tremendous means, but want to look like they do. And you're like, if you were really rich, you would have like the private screenings. Rich people they don't wait in line out front here. They come in after hours and such. I mean, I kind of see it because I live near there, the limo pulls up and these morons get out and they buy Gucci, whatever. But like, you watch the common folk doing that and you're just like, man, if you are into crypto, you've got an incredible advantage. Because I'm telling you, I'm amazed that people spend their last dollar who are not financially sound at all in their situation in life, buying like And if you look at Gucci, if you walk by and look at it, God, talk about clown outfits. It used to at least be kind of cool, but now I'm like pre-dirtied sneakers, like all the, I mean, it's just like, honestly, I don't to make fun of them, but if anybody wants to like Google like the latest, like a Gucci runway walk, for their latest stuff, it's a freaking joke. Like if people buying that stuff don't realize that they are laughing at you. I mean, pantyhose they sell now with runs already in them. I mean, like
It's like Zoolander.
it's like Zoolander, but at least Zoolander, like they well, it was very eccentric, but at least they were dressed kind of cool or interesting or
Well, no,
eccentric.
they had that one line of like garbage stuff. I think I forget
Oh,
the
was there? Gosh.
yeah.
Zoolander actually, there's always movies that help you find the times, like to see what's going on. Of course, one's always The Matrix. That, of course, is going to be a constant forever. But maybe Zoolander is a good movie to pick up and watch again,
Hmm.
because like I think maybe there's some gems in there, to
Definitely.
watch. Well, it's been great. I don't want to keep it too long. I know you probably got, very important things to go do because Crypto Love is the most eligible and wealthy international bachelor on the planet. GQ just voted him that, and so I don't want to
Are
keep
those
him.
your initials now?
Yeah, I don't want to keep him from the ladies. um, but other than that, see what else might be, fun to mention. Hey, uh, oh, along with the Schumann resonance being so crazy, and right now the world being so crazy, how do you think people can find a little bit of solace? Because it's easy to get pulled in. It's easy to have that feeling of despair. One thing I have found is, primitive skills are a great way to get into the earth. So that book and I'll link to it, but it's finding your way without map or compass. Learning compass skills is great, but this just gets into what did our ancestors do to find their way across oceans and around. How did they have that three-dimensional way of recording the lands that they could actually see their way back? Like one thing people don't think about is when you're hiking, look behind you. It looks different, and they would memorize every direction as they walked. There's all these skills that you can get back into your body, in the Wim Hof method, breathe,
Mhm.
get cold. And also I was reading a book called Futhark, which is that's I won't try to spell it. It's called Futhark. I'll link to it, but it's ruins, and it's a deep looking at the ruin stones. It's a look at those, and each one has its own energy. And then it actually has, and I didn't know this is an old art, but it is actually doing like somewhat like yoga poses that are like that shape to actually start to bring that energy in if that's what you need.
Mm.
So like get earthy. I find that, as the world's become more and more insane, I focus on the new parallel reality that's being created. I hang out there all I can, and I do things just to ground into nature skills, which I've always done, but I do even more so to keep from basically having my, being shatter like the human, like the Schumann resonance is doing right now. Because I would just say to my, little truth seeking brothers and sisters out there, if you're feeling kind of funny sometimes now, don't worry. I think it might just very quite literally be in the stars and in the Schumann and in reality, but you don't have to go down that route. So how would you stay powerful, Crypto Love?
Yeah, I think there's two ways. And with most of life there's kind of paradoxes. So this is just another little paradox. I think number one is it's very important to find your agency in life and to take action. So a lot of issues are just caused by inaction and by helplessness. And so if you just take action, and then the important part with taking action, and I have this as like a personal motto, is that I am impatient with action and patient with results, because that makes me take action immediately and not even look at results. Like everything that I produce and everything that I do, I actually try as hard as possible not to look at the results, because I want to be judged by myself based on my actions, which is in my sphere of control. So I think that's half of it. And then the other half is actually, shockingly enough, the exact opposite, is some inaction. And they say that all of man's problems come about from his inability to sit still and do nothing. And I think meditation and spending time in nature and quiet is also very important. It's the other end of the spectrum. We kind of need the yin and the yang. Um, but notice how both of these activities are active. They're not passive. So nowhere did I say go get inundated with television and Netflix and Facebook and all of that stuff. That's not, I mean, that can be fun in a little bit, but that's not going to contribute to your well-being or your life. Actually being active, choosing your life in both taking action in a direction you want and also listening to yourself and the universe. That's kind of my recommendations for what to do.
No, I love it. And I should have mentioned meditation also, because that's one that I've had to really get into recently, get in deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's wonderful. And people will say, well, I don't have time. I'm like, get up early. Just get up early and meditate. That's when the pros do it, like myself. Randall probably does also. We get up early and meditate, we
Mhm.
start the day, like wake up in the morning, stretch, have a cup of tea, poop, and meditate,
Yeah.
or you
I
can
don't have
change.
time is one of those lame excuses.
Yes.
You will never hear a successful person say I don't have time because successful people make time. It's victims who say I don't have time.
Yeah, and time, I know this is a bit existential, but I know Randall can handle it. I hope you all can handle it out there. Also, time is pliable. We create it. You literally can create time. So you can. And successful people know that. Also, you mentioned nature, of course. Um, you know, I find one of the most grounding and important things to do that helps a person be in touch with their land that they live in is find some nature somewhere near you. It could be a park, it could be a sidewalk. Hopefully you have an old growth forest on your property, right? But wherever it, if you're that lucky, right? But wherever it is, find some nature and be aware of the seasons and what happens as they change. And that will really change your life. And you'll see this, and it's very, very beautiful. And if at all possible, and of course, this is at your own risk, do your own research before you do these kind of things, people. But wild gather food from your area if you can. If you can go out and grab the blackberries, the here in Arizona we've got prickly pears, we've got mesquite. I mean, the desert seems very, very desolate and dead, but the desert, believe it or not, it rains food. It does. It does. It rains food out there. It's everywhere. And so if you can say hunt and gather, or if you just gather your native land near you and you have that connection, wow, that's a different life right there. Just watching the seasons
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. And gratitude.
Oh,
Like
yes.
that's I was just everyone so like I like to read over and over again some personal development books because I just think that every time I read it I glean new things. So this was one that I was reading that it's like, if the universe and its infinite intelligence was just trying to make it the best possible thing, like it's looking at us and it's like, what more could I do than rain down from the sky the most necessary thing that you need for life? Like, what more could I do just to show you that I love you? And it's just like, you got to just be grateful and look at the universe and say thanks every once in a while because it really is supporting us, whether we like it or not.
Yes, and it's so true. And Jocko Willink, he's ex-SEAL. He's on the ex-SEAL like talking circuit. A lot of them seem to go on to be motivational speakers. And one of the things he says, he has this great book. It's called, oh gosh, I forget what it's called. It's called like Discipline is Freedom, I think, or
Hmm.
something like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, when you start now, how do you start now? What should you do first? Something. And he's just so hardcore. But the book, it's very cool if you get it on paperback. It's really cool. It's black pages with white text because he's like he's freaky like that. He like writes this thing, and it's just this constant, just like positive hammering on basically, how do you become successful? Get off your ass. How do you stop being depressed? Pull your head out of your ass. How do you? It's just these. It's this whole book of just battering on you about it. It's on you. You make the change. You want to have a completely different life? Well, decide and do it now. But how do I do
Hmm.
that? You just did it. What do you mean? So you chose to continue being a loser. Now get off your ass and go outside. It's just, it's so if you need a little bit of loving abuse definitely Discipline is Freedom by Jocko Willink is phenomenal to start 2021.
That sounds awesome.
Wow. Well, Randall, Crypto Love, it has been amazing talking to you. It's been a lot of fun.
Dude,
It
it's
always
been a
is.
pleasure. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me again. I can't wait until the next time. It's always fun to catch up.
Oh, it sure is. Is there anything people can find you on YouTube? They can search Crypto Love and they're going to find you. I'll link to you in the show notes, of course. Is there anywhere else that they should look for you?
That's basically it.
Yeah. And if you're not on YouTube, well, you're a loser. Anyway, take care, everybody. See you soon, Crypto Love.
Peace.
Bye.
You are listening to Radiant Creators, a collaborative project composed of people whose passion, purpose, and dedication requires forging their own unique path of empowerment and livelihood. A radiant creator isn't making a living, they are living.